Picture this. It's the Comrades Marathon, 90 kilometers of heels, heat, and hurt. 22,000 runners, a country watching, and somewhere near the front, there's a woman, not grimacing, not gritting her teeth, smiling, waving at the crowd, looking for all the world like she's enjoying a Sunday jog. That woman is Gerda Steyn, 6-time Two Oceans champion, 4-time Comrades champion, South African marathon record holder, 2-time Olympian. And the reason she's called the smiling assassin is because that smile isn't just personality, it's strategy. It's science, and it's something every single one of us can learn from. Here's what I find remarkable about Gerda's story. She didn't start running until she was 24. She was working as a quantity surveyor in Dubai. She joined a running club almost by accident, and within a decade, she became the greatest female ultra-distance runner South Africa has ever produced. Today's episode isn't just about elite sport. It's about what happens when an extraordinary human being learns to train, to recover, and compete at the highest level, and what those lessons mean for the rest of us trying to run our own race, whatever that race looks like. Welcome to Health Matters, where the science of human flourishing meets the reality of everyday life. Your body is the most extraordinary thing you will ever live in, and it was built to thrive. But somewhere between the noise, the busyness, and the bad advice, most of us never got the owner's manual. I'm Michael Mol, and that's what this show is all about. Real science made human. Today's episode isn't just about elite sport. It's about what happens when an extraordinary human being learns to train, recover, and compete at the highest level, and what those lessons mean for the rest of us trying to run our own race, whatever that race looks like. Gerda, welcome to Health Matters. Such a treat to have you on the show.
Good day, Michael, and it's my pleasure to be on the show today. I can't wait to dive into a nice in-depth conversation. I think we've both got so much to share, so hopefully everyone listening in will also enjoy it.
Brilliant. You've already trained today, so I feel like I'm not taking time away from you on the road, which is good. But let me start at the beginning, Gerda, because your story breaks, I don't know, every rule we have about elite sport. I mean, most world-class distance runners that have been on a track since they were teenagers, most have. You were working in an office in Dubai at the age of 24 before you even discovered running. I mean, take us back to that moment. What happened? How did you fall into running, as it were?
That's absolutely correct, yes. Growing up through my childhood years, even going to university, I've always enjoyed sports. I competed in sports for social reasons, really, to be honest. Never really stood out in any form of sports, although I was always keen enough to try it. I played hockey, I played netball. I did a little bit of running, but nowhere near on a professional level. And it was only later in my life when like you said, when I was around 24 years old, already working as a quantity surveyor. I was in a new city, in a new country, and I thought I'll join the running club just to make sure that I get introduced to people, and then of course also have a little bit of a healthy side to it. But it wasn't long until not so much myself, but those around me, my new made friends, realized that something is a little bit different here. I improved
We
so
can't keep up with
rapidly.
her.
Initially, they could easily keep up with me, but my fitness just seemed to improve I can almost say on a weekly basis. And as it got to the longer runs that I've never done before in my life, I found it came naturally to me, and I just loved it. I completely fell in love with running, and I didn't at that point know that it might become my career one day still, but I knew that this was something that I loved, and it was something that I wanted to be a part of my life every single day. So that's
Wow.
really where it all started for me. Of course,
Wow.
nowadays it's not quite the same anymore. My hobby completely turned into my career, which I feel so fortunate about, because it feels like it was a near miss. I almost never discovered this running talent that I had inside of me. So yeah, really, really fortunate how the last decade basically
Wow.
played out for me.
I've never thought of it. I've never thought of that, Gerda. I've known your story, but what you just said was actually, it was a goosebumps moment. I could have missed it if I hadn't gone to the running club, if I'd gone to play tennis instead, or I might have missed this greatness inside of me. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's almost an inspiration for all of us just to try a number of things. Quickly take me back to your very first comrades, by the way. I mean, 2015, and then a year later, I think you came 56th, but a year later, you took an hour and a half off of your time. You just said to me, I improved on a weekly basis in a year, an hour of comrades. Has anyone else ever done that? I mean, that's phenomenal.
It was quite a big chunk that I took off between my first and my second comrades. And also in those 12 months, so much has changed. So much inside of me has also changed. I wasn't full-time running at that point just yet, but my entire mindset towards running have changed. I felt so inspired by watching other women run and compete and doing things that they never thought would be possible. And I said to myself, why can't it just be me? Why can't I just give it a go and give myself a chance at seeing how well I can do this if I commit to it? And in my second year of running the comrades, I wasn't anywhere near winning the race, but I made a huge improvement. And that again just motivated me to keep going. I understood that a year was not very long at all. So I thought the future is looking bright. I must just keep going and keep working hard every single day.
It's amazing. Gerda, I'm going to do a little segue into some science just because you inspire that kind of thing. But for our listeners, we talk about mitochondria often. It's kind of the key thing when it comes to longevity. And every training run you did was basically building mitochondria, tiny little power generators inside your muscles. And more mitochondria means more energy used more efficiently. And that biological infrastructure takes years to develop properly. And not only that, but your brain was also rewiring. I mean, Gerda's had new neural pathways forming, movement patterns encoding, her engine quietly becoming extraordinary. I mean, that late start from 24 didn't cost you. I think in some ways it might have actually saved you. I mean, what your body was building in those early years wasn't just fitness. It was biological infrastructure, and you had it. You just needed to, carve the David out of the marble and set the angel free, as Michelangelo said. Gerda, you've talked about consistency being more important than intensity. Why don't you unpack that for us? Because I think a lot of people hear elite athlete and assume it's all about just suffering the longest and the fastest.
That is very true. I think a lot of people mistake professional running or professional athletics with just getting out there every day and grinding yourself and finishing almost on the floor from tiredness, but that's often not the case. Yes, of course, there is a room for times where you have to really push your limits and push yourself not over the edge, but getting very, very close to the edge. But often what people don't realize is so much happens on those days of just consistent running, doing the same thing over and over and over again without getting bored, without asking if there's really a purpose in this. I think that is a very, very, very big part of running and making sure that you've got that longevity in running. It's not about just going to the maximum every single day. It's going out on a Tuesday morning when there's no one else waiting for you, but you have to just go and run for your hour or your 90 minutes and respect that what you are doing today is not just about today, but it's about the bigger picture. And it's about being ready for when you have to really push yourself, perhaps in a day's time or in 2 days' time, and finding that balance and making sure that this is something that you can sustain over a long period of time in order to see that improvement and in order to make sure that you can do this year in and year out.
I mean, Gerda, you talk about your body getting stronger, but it sounds to me that your mind gets stronger the same way your body does with that consistent, deliberate practice. Getting up on a Tuesday morning when everyone decides to sleep in or it's raining, so we're not going to train. You're out there on a Tuesday running in the rain. That makes you mentally tough as well, doesn't it?
It 100% does. I look at my mental toughness in the same way as I look at any other muscle or body part. It's
Yeah.
something that you can train. It's something that you can grow. You can grow resilience. You have to have the seed planted inside of your mind. You have to have your goals clear and then work yourself and train your mind to get to the point where you can actually handle the task that is going to be ahead of you on race day. When it is
Yeah.
dark and cold and windy and rainy out there, it's not easy, but I always tell myself that this will make me stronger for when it really gets tough in another way on race day. If I can push through this, I know it will make me stronger to also get through the next challenge. And that's very, very important. The two must go together and your mind must be as strong or even stronger than your body, because I believe that your body will always follow what you tell yourself and what your mind tells you and what your mind
Sure.
believes that you can do.
You should preach, Gerda. Often. I heard it once said that the six pack is not what makes you proud. It's the person you became to get that six pack that really makes you proud. And that's worth going after. And you've just described that beautifully. Let's talk about recovery, because I think this is where your approach is most instructive for everyone listening to this podcast, not just runners, everybody. Gerda, you've been deliberate about limiting the number of races you do each season, treating recovery as seriously as you treat training. So what does recovery actually look like for you? I mean, physically and mentally, now that we're talking body and brains.
Absolutely, yes. Those two aspects are both very, very important. And recovery, again, is something that we can always easily overlook. Again, in the same way where you have to wake up on a Tuesday to do an easy run, it's the same concept that applies to recovery as well. It's maybe not what looks glamorous or what looks impressive on paper, but it is so, so important to make sure that you put all your attention into recovering in between workouts. Recovery
Mm-hmm.
comes in many forms. For me, there are a few non-negotiables. If I think about the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, my sleep. Good, long enough hours sleeping is so, so important for
Mm-hmm.
our bodies. And I'm sure you can give us a much better explanation for why, but
Mm-hmm.
it is something that we can't just leave out. It is the time where your body recovers. It is so, so important to get that rest and make sure that you give yourself the recovery, because I ask so much from my body. I need to
Mm-hmm.
know that there will be times where it's my turn to give back and to make sure that I preserve my body for the next day of hard work. And
Yeah.
also, that something that goes together with sleep is also just making sure that you can switch off your mind. It's not
Mm.
always easy because there's adrenaline, there's so many hormones, and there's so much going through your system when you're training hard and when you're focused. And in the competitive world of running as well, you want to be competitive. There's so much going on in your mind, but you need
Yeah,
to teach
sure.
yourself to really shut off, to be able to lock or to lock down, lock the cupboard of competitive running and racing, and make sure
Wow.
that you can just take a moment to breathe and take a moment to switch off. And that also again recovers the mind, and it
Yeah.
also helps that you are fresh when it's time to go again.
How do you take that mental break, Gerda? I mean, most of us, and I'm going to give a very practical example, will get into bed in the evenings and then our mind starts to race and we ruminate, and it's hard to turn off the noise. And you just described that beautifully. You've got to take a mental break. What are your hacks? How do you turn that busy brain off?
I think there are quite a few tools out there to help turn your brain off. For me, it is making sure that there are other things in my life. I look at
Mm,
running as something that I do. It is a big part of me as well. It is what I love to do, but I can't just have that. I have to have other
yeah.
things in my life. I have uh, to have other interests, something that is completely detached from running. And that really, really helps me to switch off. I like to go on
What are those,
walks.
by the way? Oh, you're going to tell me. Okay. All right.
Yeah, of course. I like to do a little bit of art every now and then. I like to read. I like to spend time
Wow.
with my husband. we both love nature and we can spend hours out in nature that is not exactly physically straining like running. And it doesn't matter what it is, but I think that is very, very important to have that
Mm.
thing that you can go to, that you can
Yeah.
see as your escape. Another
Yeah.
tool that is also very helpful for me is journaling. I like to write down how I felt in the day. Yes, it is to do with my running, but it is still not physical exercise. I,
Mm.
I, yeah, it can be anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but to have that something that you can just feel is your escape is very, very important to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, recovery is so crucial. And here's something that surprises people. Training doesn't actually make you fitter. It's recovery that does. The training, and you suggested I mentioned this, how the training is just the trigger. It's controlled stress. So your body gets stronger during the rest that follows. And obviously sleep is where most of that happens. During deep sleep, growth hormone pulses through your body, repairing muscle, and your brain's waste clearance system, that lymphatic system, flushes out the debris of the day, and movement skills practiced during training also get encoded into long-term memory. So if you cut the sleep, none of that happens properly. You just accumulate damage. And that overtraining picture maps almost perfectly onto what we see in people who burn out professionally. So the biology for those of us listening is exactly the same. And the fix is the same. Recovery isn't laziness, it's the mechanism. Without it, stress just accumulates. Gerda, I want to move on to something I've been wanting to ask you for a long time, the smile. Your famous trademark. I see it now. It's beautiful. And I want to come back to that because it's more than a personality quirk, isn't it? I mean, there's actual physiology behind your smile when you run. And it's not just when you cross the finish line first. It's when you're running, when you're starting the race, when you're feeling the pain, you're still smiling. Tell me about that.
Absolutely, yes. There is definitely one thing that I can never get rid of now, and that is the name that I've been given as the smiling assassin. And I
Good.
think, of course, part of me smiling when I'm running is because I truly love running. I love it. I feel so passionate about it. When I'm running, I feel like I am in the best version of myself. And I can't help but smile often, especially when I run races like the Two Oceans or the Comrades, and thousands of people are out on the route screaming your name and supporting you. I mean,
Oh,
I can't see how you can't smile. And then, of course,
mm,
as you mentioned, crossing the finish line, you are on such a high. There's so much adrenaline going through your veins. Again, I can't help but to smile. But of course, it is
yeah,
ultra running and it is really demanding in so many ways. So, of course, there are times when
sure.
I'm going through a really difficult patch, where I don't necessarily feel like smiling or all bubbly inside. But I know now that with my smile, I can use that as a tool, and it has helped me through the hardest moments in running. I've realized that when I smile, it brings another type of energy into my body. It also, when I try to connect to the crowds, when I try to catch someone's eye, smile at them, the energy that I get in return is undescribable. And so I've now started using it as a tool and also something that I would recommend to anyone else. And it doesn't just apply to perhaps a literal smile on your face and running. It can just be that idea of trying to keep a positive mindset through a difficult situation, because it
Um,
reminds me to stay positive. It reminds me that yes, this moment is tough, but look, I can still smile. I can still find some reason to stay positive and work
yeah.
through this tough moment. And later on, I'm going to smile and I'm going to mean it, because I am going to know that I've worked through this difficult patch and I've gotten through it and I'm going to feel proud about it. So it is, yes, it is a trademark, but it is also a tool, and it is something that I like to use to also just remind for anyone watching that if you keep a positive mindset, you can get through so much in life.
Yeah. Gerda, I love that. I mean, there's the biology and the science, and I'll get into that in a moment, but you're actually doing it, which and that just trumps everything. I mean, studies have shown that smiling during hard physical effort, the kind of effort that you put in, measurably improves running efficiency. Your body uses oxygen more economically when you smile than when you grimace. And people often go, but why? Well, because smiling relaxes your face and your upper body. Tension uses energy, less tension, more efficiency. I mean, on top of that, smiling triggers a real release of endorphins and serotonin too. And so it's not a metaphor, it's actual biochemistry. So you don't smile despite the pain. You smile because of what it does to the pain. I loved what you said. It's a tool and a trademark. Okay, let's talk about the wall. Everyone hits a wall in a race, in a project, in life. The moment where your rational mind says stop and something else has to take over. What's your mental toolkit when that moment comes? You've told us about the smile. We get that. But surely you've come to a point where you cannot go any further. You hit the wall. What then?
Hitting the wall in running is quite a famous, or can I say infamous term. It often, many runners will have experienced hitting that wall. It often comes quite late into a race where your body is feeling fatigued and you have expended so much energy and perhaps the finish line is not quite in sight just yet. And, it's a daunting time. It's a daunting moment in any runner's race. And for myself, I've also experienced really difficult times where I've hit the wall and I know that I've got to get to the finish line in one way or another. But for me, it is all about making sure that I don't have a moment where I just want to throw everything out and just give up. I tell myself before a race, before every single race I do, is whatever happens on this race, I cannot give up. If moments come where it feels like I can't go on any further, I have to just shorten my goalposts. Instead of thinking I need to run another 50 kilometers, I think of myself as just getting to the next water table or getting to the next kilometer marker, and then seeing again and reassessing and seeing if I'm perhaps have felt better. I also look at it in a very in a very logic way. I ask myself in that difficult moment, what is there that I can physically do to improve my situation? Can I perhaps take more energy? Can I just perhaps, do I need to just stretch out a muscle or take the load off or relax my shoulders or remember again to smile or something physical that I can do to improve this situation? And if I feel like I've done everything physically to improve it, I then tell myself that I have to remember the mind is much stronger than the body. It can get me to the next kilometer marker. And before you know, the next kilometer marker have become the next 10 kilometers and the finish line eventually will come. So it is just about breaking down the big goal, breaking down this monster that feels like a monster in front of you into smaller parts and just making sure that you get to those posts one by one and eventually the finish line will be in sight.
That's amazing. That is such good life advice. In fact, what Gerda, for those listening, has just described actually has a name in sports psychology. It's called goal proximalization. Such a cool word. And it works because of how your brain calculates effort. So your brain doesn't measure effort against an absolute scale. It measures effort against the perceived distance to the endpoint. So if you move that endpoint closer, the next lamppost, the next kilometer mark, and the exact same physical effort immediately feels more manageable. You haven't changed the race. You've just changed your reference point. And that's a tool that anyone can use in anything. And what about your why, Gerda? Because that must also come into play. This whole idea of, my why. I love what I do, yes, but there's also a girl from Boerdeville can show the world that she can run on any stage. A why must come into play at some point.
Oh, 100% yes. For me, I often ask myself the question, why? It pops up all the time in my mind, and it can sound like a negative thing. Why am I doing it? But it often isn't. It's such a motivation, and it's a very personal motivation, but it can also be an external kind of motivation. When I started running, it was all about how can I improve myself? What can I do to be a little bit better than I was in my previous race? it then changed. It molded into something much deeper and much more meaningful. As I started running better and winning, especially the Two Oceans and the Comrades, I realized that my why is not about me anymore. For me
Mm.
now, my why is about inspiring others, about what it brings to
Mm.
others watching, what it means to a young boy or girl watching the race and aspiring to also do something in sports with their own lives, or someone who's much older than me, perhaps
Amazing.
thinking perhaps they can start somewhere, that it's never too late to start. I think in South Africa, sport is so important for us. It is exciting to be a sports person in South Africa, but it is also a very, very important part of our culture and the way what gets us excited and what brings us together. And for me, knowing that I'm a South African sports person, nothing makes me prouder than that. Nothing makes me
Yeah.
more proud to be South African than knowing that I have the opportunity to represent South Africans in the sports field. So I see it as an honor. For me, a why is not just about me anymore. It's carrying a little bit of an honor, carrying the flag for everyone and anyone who is watching. And that to me has also helped me through really difficult moments. It's such a motivation for me knowing that this is for bigger than just me. And hopefully
Yeah.
it can leave a mark and leave a little bit of a, even if it's the smallest message of positivity in someone else's mind. To me, that makes getting through difficult moments worthwhile.
Wow. Sure. If you didn't already love Gerda, that statement must make you love her even more. That my why is not me. It's for those around me. It's for something far greater than I am. Gerda, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. It would be remiss of me not to ask this question, and this comes from someone who's never crossed the finish line first at any race. What's it like crossing the finish line at Comrades? Not just once, 4 times. You said nothing in sport comes close to that. What does it feel like in that moment? That ribbon across your chest, the hand up, the crowd's going crazy. I mean, I'm going to close my eyes for a moment. Describe that for me.
It's a moment that it takes very, very long for it to sink in. You're in that moment, but it almost feels like it's an out of body experience. It's almost like I'm in the crowds watching someone else crossing the finish line. It takes days before the reality really starts to sink in. And amongst the tiredness and the exhaustion and the many, many hours on the road from Durban to Pietermaritzburg or the opposite, you still in that moment, you have got so much adrenaline and so much energy pumping through your veins. And it's just the biggest moment that you can think of. Crossing the finish line, it feels like it's the best place in the world to be, is on that finish line, holding the ribbon in your hands and knowing that you've reached your goal. It is something that I, as a kid growing up, never ever envisaged in my entire life. So to have
Wow.
that moment, it's completely surreal. And yeah, it's something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I know that. And yeah, it's such an honor also. I think again, to cross the finish line in first place as a South African, I don't know what sporting event can top that. For me, I've
Wow.
run across the world. I've run in most of the biggest races across the world, but nothing beats that feeling. Coming home to the crowd that's carried you literally from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an incredible, incredible feeling.
Oh, that is so special. I once asked an Olympic gold medalist, one of our own, one of the rowers, what it's like to win a gold medal. And he was a youngster at the time. And I'll never forget, he said it was like, that feeling you have when you've written your last exam in matric and it's just the holiday that awaits. He said, that's what it feels like. Gerda, I
Brilliant.
almost want to end it there, but I know I'm going to have people going, come on, man, there's runners here that want to talk about fueling. Because it's controversial. People, not quite sure how it works. You've clearly got it right. I think this is an area where the gap between what people believe and what the science shows is enormous. So Won't you just briefly give us your principles of fueling without turning this into a lab lecture? Not that you would ever do that, but how do you refuel or fuel when you're running?
I can certainly give a little bit of a guideline of what I do, but I do understand that it can be very difficult to know what is right and wrong. There's so much information out there, so much information that says exactly the opposite to the next bit of information that you read. So it is a difficult topic. It's something that I also work on every day and finding ways that is better or ways to improve. But I think as a principle for me, when it comes to fueling, I try to keep my diet and my energy intake as simple as possible, as natural as possible, not to overcomplicate it. On race day and in race week, especially the days leading up to a race, I never ever do anything that is out of the ordinary. I try to stick to food that I know, very simple home cooked food. I'll give an example. Staple diet of mine before a race is plain chicken and rice that I've prepared myself. Nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary,
Sure.
and just sticking to that. I also just have to make sure that during training, that of course I stay hydrated. I take enough protein, but also carbohydrates to support the energy needs that I have. And never to
Yes.
come into that moment, that cycle of deficiency. It is also, it's very, very important also to make sure that your diet meets your needs. To think again long term about your energy needs, making sure that you fuel yourself for a longevity. So that to me is my main principles. It is not that easy always. Often you travel to a race and you're not in your home comforts, but even so, I try to just keep it natural, keep it really, really simple, and nothing new on race day.
And wonderful advice. And something you said there I really want to hone in on is don't get into the deficiency cycle. Always kind of stay ahead. I mean, your muscles, and here's the science moment for those of you listening, your muscles and liver store carbohydrate as glycogen. We know that. And at race pace, that store runs out in around 90 minutes of hard effort. When it runs low, your brain interprets that as a threat and starts pulling back on your muscles. That's the wall we spoke about. It's not weakness. It's just your brain protecting you from collapse. And at the intensity that Gerda runs, fat oxidation can't keep pace. The biochemistry is too slow for what elite endurance demands. So at race pace, carbohydrate, non-negotiable. Keep topping up before you empty. Get out of that deficiency cycle, as Gerda said. But here's where it gets interesting and where the science applies differently to the rest of us. All right. So if you're listening, this is not for you as an elite athlete. This is for you like Michael, everyday life. Your brain doesn't exclusively run on glucose. A metabolically healthy person can fuel their brain effectively on fat, on ketones, or on a combination of both. In fact, some of the most compelling longevity research suggests that a brain running partly on ketones produced from fat metabolism, obviously, could actually be more resilient, not less. So the real lesson isn't eat carbs constantly. That's not what Gerda is saying. That's not what I'm saying. The real lesson is metabolic flexibility, the ability of your body to switch efficiently between fuel sources depending on what you're doing. That capacity is trainable, and it's one of the strongest markers of long-term metabolic health we have. I mean, what breaks people? And Gerda, sorry, I'm getting deep into the science here, but the surgeon at hour 12, the executive through back-to-back meetings, the parent running on empty at 10 o'clock at night isn't always a lack of carbohydrate. It's chronic underfueling. It's getting to that deficiency cycle. Skip meals, no protein, no fat, nothing. An empty tank is an empty tank, regardless of what you put in it. So your brain needs consistent, adequate fuel. The form that takes depends on your metabolism, your training, and what you've eaten that day. But here's the non-negotiable, and I think, Gerda, you would agree with that, is you cannot think clearly, you can't regulate your emotions or make good decisions on a body that hasn't been fed. That's not a bad day. That's biology doing exactly what biology does. You cannot smile without glucose. Gerda, it's been an absolute treat. Thank you so much for your input, for your inspiration, for the smiling assassin that just has so much to give to the rest of the world. If there was one thing that you wanted to leave us with, one thought, one idea, what would that be? What's the one thing we can take away from this wonderful conversation?
Thank you so much, Michael. I've also learned a lot today, so I've really enjoyed it. And hopefully a lot of people can take something away from this. I think if there's one thing that I want to leave the listeners with is to just never be too scared to try something. You don't have to be the best from the first day on. You just have to try. You have to just be courageous enough, have courage to just try and see where it will lead. It might lead you on a complete path that you've never expected in your life.
Such great wisdom and advice. I'd go right back to that time in Dubai when you said, I might not have run. I mean, those words are haunting. Can you imagine? The world might never have got to see Gerda smiling, crossing that finish line umpteen times. Gerda, we look forward to seeing you on the finish line again, first, many times. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for the warmth and for being a living, smiling argument that greatness can start later than you think and last longer than anyone expects. God bless you. Here's what I'd like you to take from today. You don't have to run 90 kilometers to apply what Gerda Steyn knows. In fact, most powerful insights from elite sport are almost always the simplest ones. Recovery is not the opposite of performance. It is performance. The adaptation, the getting stronger, the getting better happens during rest, during sleep, during the deliberate slowdown. If you're always going, you never actually grow. The wall is coming in your work, your relationships, your health. When it does, don't look at the finish line. Find the next lamppost, the next kilometer. I love that. Go to your why. Smile genuinely, deliberately, and let the crowd carry you and start. Even if you're 24, even if you're 44, even if you've never done anything like this before. Do what Gerda said and try. She joined a running club in Dubai and became the greatest female ultra-distance runner South Africa has ever produced. Your biology is on your side. Your brain is plastic. Your body adapts. The only question is whether you'll show up on a Tuesday morning. So here's your one action for today. Find your next lamppost, not the finish line, the next small thing, the next meal you eat with intention, the next 8 hours of sleep you protect, the next morning you lace up when you don't feel like it, because that's how champions are built. Not in the moments of glory, in the ordinary Tuesday mornings. If this episode moved you, yes, please share it. Subscribe to Health Matters wherever you listen, and join us next week for another conversation that makes the science of health part of your everyday life, because your health matters.